my name is Afradi Salmon Mwijage. Hello, my name is Afradi Salmon Mwijage from Edukea Tanzania. Welcome in this session to proceed with our fifth topic, which is socialism. On the last session, we ended on looking the reasons that faced the achievement of building the scientific socialism in European countries. So now we are going to see the theory of scientific socialism. The theory of scientific socialism. So this was written as the scientific socialism when the Communist Manifesto was published by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. It means that this was written as scientific socialism when the Communist Manifesto was published by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. The philosophical basis of scientific socialism is the class struggle and the revolutionary action as the most effective way of building socialism, according to Marx and Engels. In the absence of class struggle and revolutionary action, if it is impossible to build the scientific socialism. From the analysis of Karl Marx of 1883 up to 1818 and the Engels of 1820 up to 1895, the following were observed. It means that from the analysis of Karl Marx, who was born in 1883 and died in 1818, who was born in 1818 and died in 1883. And died in 1883, and Engels or Friedrich Engels, who was born in 1820 to 1895. The following were observed from their analysis. The first one was the destruction of capitalism can only be achieved by revolutionary actions and the class struggle, since exploitative class, that is capitalist, would not voluntarily surrender. It means that destruction of capitalism can only be achieved by revolutionary actions and the class struggle, since the exploitative class, that is capitalist, would not voluntarily surrender. That was observation that was observed from the analysis. Also, the working class is the only revolutionary force capable of overthrowing capitalism, because workers are the majority in the society, but they are one who are exploited, humiliated, oppressed, and they own nothing except their labor power until they win. It means that the working class is the only revolutionary force capable of overthrowing capitalism, because workers are the majority in the society, but the one who are exploited or who are exploited, humiliated, oppressed, and own nothing except their labor, except their labor power until they win. Another, the working class will have to form a common front with its alliance with peasants and other progressive social groups must join together to overthrow of capitalist state will be replaced by dictatorship of the proletariat, which must defend and protect the interests of the masses. Another observation that was observed from the analysis of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels was the government of workers must ensure the following. The major means of production and the distribution of waste of production and distribution of major means of production, the distribution of wealth and the property are put in hands of workers and peasants. To mean that the major means of production and the distribution of wealth and the property are put in the hands of workers and peasants. Also, labor it means labor is no longer treated as a commodity. To mean that labor was no longer treated as the commodity. An economic structure must dissolve the contradictions in the society, because socialist government of workers must plan the economy for all people in the society. It means that the economic structure must dissolve the contradiction in the society, because the socialist government of workers must plan the economy for all people in the society. It means that the centralization of economy through the government and not in the few hands of the people. So let us see the origin or genesis of scientific socialism. What were the origins or genesis of scientific socialism? The first one was German ideology of dialectics. It means that the first one was German ideology of dialectics. The second one was the contribution of French Revolution of 1789. This was another contribution of scientific revolution. Another was utopian socialism with its ideal. And another was the English political economist like Adam Smith. That was the English political economist, not Adam Smith. I have forgotten about that political economist. But the another was the contribution of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, also contributed to the scientific socialism. And another contribution of German ideology of dialectics. And the ideology was put forward a philosopher known as Michael Hegel, whereby Hegel whereby Hegel with his ideology of dialect insisted on changes in the society is inevitable, and always these changes arise out of contradictions. And Hegel used the three components to verify the theory of dialects, which are thesis, the thesis, and thesis from the German ideology. Marx borrowed the concept of dialects and used them to develop the concept of historical and dialectical materialism, which is called the correct outlook of the world. And the concept of the historical materialism stated that the matter is a constant motion or change, and the people should understand the laws governing nature. And Marx later concluded that the change from capitalism to socialism was inevitable even by revolution, because the society as matter keeps on constant change. Let us see the contribution of French Revolution in building socialism. The French Revolution, which advocated for equality, fought for the rise of scientific socialism. This was because after French had made a revolution, it managed to establish French socialism and overthrow capitalism. And overthrow capitalism. It means say for start time of only 72 days, but it collapsed, so Karl Marx fear its weakness involved in French socialism, that the French socialism after the revolution of 1789 failed because it was led by idealistic way of thinking and no scientific approach. From this weakness, Marx disposed the scientific theory of building socialism, which insisted workers to struggle to make revolution in order to remove the capitalists more scientifically and not emotionally or immorality. To mean that Karl Marx the socialists called Karl Marx insisted the working class to struggle to make the revolution in order to remove the capitalist who was acting the evils in the society through it means the workers to make the revolutionary through scientifically and not emotion and immorality. Contribution of utopian socialism. This intended to build socialism through moral approach or discussion or persuasion to the capitalist. And Karl Marx criticized their long way or approach that was practically impossible to ask the exploiters to stop exploitation and the oppression, since they were the one who benefited of the capitalist system, and usually capitalism operated through exploitation from this weakness. And Karl Marx as well as Friedrich Engels depend the method of class struggle and revolutionary action as the scientific way of building socialism in the world. Another, the contribution of the English political economist, from the English political economist Karl Marx criticized them because of their weakness and because they were emphasizing capitalism in the society. And they were like Adam Smith, David Ricardo, and Robert Malthus, because their theory justified capitalism exploitation in the society. Adam Smith, in his book of the Wealth of the Nation, published in 1776, said that all business and economic activities are regulated by the natural laws, which are the law of supply and demand, and the law of competition, that is, in any business, price will be fixed by the supply and the demand. So Smith argued that every man should be free to do what he thought to be the best for himself. For example, to involve in business or to involve in capitalism. So Karl Marx was criticizing the ways that was come up with the English economist. Robert Malthus, what was he said? He was an Anglican clergyman who became a professor of economics. In his book titled as an essay on the principles of population, published in 1798. He wrote that the greatest obstacle to human progress was the increase of population. Therefore, he argued that population was increasing. The population was increasing arithmetically. For example, as you can see on the drawing, population supply, population and food. That's the mathematically calculated. So you can see on the board. Then he comes out with the possible solution to the problems. He advocated wars, famine, and the hunger, diseases, especially epidemic diseases, etc. All these aimed at to reduce population size. Also, David Ricardo, who was the English economist, David Ricardo, he advocated the theory of comparative advantages, where in his book titled as Principle of Political Economy and Taxation of 1870, he recommended that each region has to dwell or continue on producing what is suitable for each region. That is, agrarian society should remain agrarian and industrial society should remain industrial society. That was the suggestion of David Ricardo. Therefore, Karl Marx came out with the theory of scientific, which aspired for building a socialist state under exploitation of man by man, and the oppression as well as segregation of people in the society should not exist. Let us see the contribution of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. These thinkers were the initiatives of scientific socialism who advocated their time to write and expand the idea of building socialism through the principle of scientific socialism. Hence, the ideas of Marx and Engels were taken and put into practice by people who aimed at volunteered to build socialism in the world history. For example, Lenin, who built socialism in Russia after the Bolshevik Revolution of October 1917. Let us see principles of building socialism, scientific socialism. Principles of building scientific socialism. Principles of building scientific socialism. According to Karl Marx, construction of scientific socialism must be led by scientific principles. This economic-based mode of production, class conflict and class struggle, revolutionary strategy, agent of revolution. Let us start with economic base. It means that according to Karl Marx, construction of scientific socialism must be led by scientific principles. These were economic base, mode of production, class conflict and the class struggle, as well as revolutionary strategy, the agent of revolution. By starting with economic base, the contribution of scientific socialism depended on economic base of particularly society. According to Marx, if the economic is weak, do not dream to build scientific socialism, but if the economic base of the particular society is strong, the scientific socialism will be constructed based in a society where economy, therefore the poor struggle, the poor society where economically, therefore the poor struggle to achieve better economic situation. But if the economic base is weak, no struggle of so mode of production. That was all about economic base. This is one of the determinant factor for building scientific socialism. Because this is one of the determinant factor for building scientific socialism, because mode of production determines human nature at a particular stage and the conflict tend to extend in such mode of production. For example, in capitalism, exploitation, elimination and desegregation are very high. This led to the antagonistic class struggle between the capitalists and the workers. So the class conflict in capitalism became sharper and created a conducive environment for socialism revolution. Marx concluded that scientific socialism is possible to be launched successfully under capitalism because of its evils in the society. Let us look on class struggle. According to Marx, the production process determined the existence of class and the class conflict, which these two led to the rise of class struggle in the society. And according to him, the class difference and the conflict is the result of the economic factor or reason, therefore the class conflict. The class struggle and the class are related to the question or like who produce and what and who has got what. This resulted to scientific socialism in order to end the class conflict and the class struggle, which are the result of capitalism and its evils in the society. That was principle number 2 and 3. So let us see the principle number 4 of scientific revolution. Revolutionary strategy. By revolution, we mean the total overthrow of the ruling class from power, and those who were ruled by the ruling class. So I mean revolutionary strategy. By revolution, we mean that the total overthrow of the ruling class from the power, and those who were ruled by that place, and where to start the revolution, and who should take power after the revolution. So let us see another principle, that is agent of revolution. According to Marx, scientific socialism must be led by most exploited and oppressed people who are proletariat class, because this class is the one which feel the pains of the capitalists, like humiliation, segregation, oppression, and exploitation. To mean that agents of revolution must be those exploited class, that was proletariat class or workers class, that feel the pain of capitalism, like humiliation, segregation, oppression, and the exploitation. This class where they get tired of capitalism, they must decide to overthrow the capitalism, and that's why for Marx, the exploited class is the correct agent for the socialist revolution. So that was all about the principles of socialism, scientific socialism in the world. Let us see another subtopic, which is Russian Revolution in October 1917. A revolution is a political term which can be defined as the total overthrow of the existing government by those who were previously subjected to it. The Russian Socialist Revolution took place in 26 October 1917 under the Bolsheviks. And this revolution, however, preceded by another society revolution which took place in February 1917, but this was not successful like the Bolsheviks because of its weakness in the society to the Russians. But both of these revolutions came into existence because of the problems faced Russia during the 17th, before and during 1917. Before and during 1917. The Russian society before and during 1917. Peasants. These were the majority in Russia who used the primitive method of cultivation like N/O without any mechanization in agriculture, like the use of tractors, no use of machines for planting and harvesting. The economy of the peasants was very low because of the use of primitive method of cultivation. To mean that the Russian society before and during the 1917s, there were peasants. To mean the society of Russia was included peasants. This was using the primitive method of cultivation like N/Os, and there was no use of mechanization in agriculture like the use of tractors and machines for planting and harvesting. Also, the economy of the peasants was very low because of using the traditional or primitive methods of cultivation. Also, at the beginning of the 19th century, Russian agriculture was still low in comparison with other Western European countries. Another land distribution was unfair because a large number of acres of land which belongs to the millions of peasants were were taken by the ruling class and given to the few landlords, who were about 30,000. Hence, there were serious land shortage among the peasants, which led them to support the October 1917 revolution in Russia. Also, the start of Russia at the proletariat. This was a very small number of people in the 19th century. This was the small number of people in the late 19th century. And this group of workers, this group of workers was concentrated in very few areas, especially in towns, and they had a very low standard of living because they earned a little. It means that these workers were present in rural areas. They were in rural areas. Workers had to supplement their wages with cultivation of smaller plots in the countryside, but also the cultivation was done by primitive way or N-O. I mean they cultivated different crops by the use of primitive ways or methods like the use of N-Os. Hence, they supported a revolution seriously in order to get out all these problems which we are facing them before the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. The big landlords or landlords, that was another group in the society of Russia before, in Russia before the Bolshevik Revolution. This group comprised of the rural capitalists who own rural farms, and most of the peasants had to work in their farms for their benefits. And this group was small in number in Russian society. The last was the capitalist class or bourgeoisie class. This class was weak and small, which operated its economic activity by using foreign capital. Because Russia by that time were very much behind of Western industrial stage of capitalism, so their influence to the ruling class was negligible. But another was the Russian Orthodox Church, that comprises the Russian Orthodox Church. This comprises the bishops and the upper clergy. This Orthodox Church class are cooperated with the ruling class in Russia to oppress the normal Russians. And another was the administrators. The administrators, this class composed of the Tsar or Caesar or the king and the nobility. In this class, the parliament called the Duma had the unlimited power because it based only on restricted electorate, and its role was to make laws and order only, while all the powers of implementing those powers were given to the ruling class under the Tsar. And the revolution was intended to overthrow the ruling class. Hence, the revolution of Russia took place when Russia was partially feudal state in rural areas and partially capitalist states, especially in urban areas. However, a large percent of Russia was under feudalism, and the socialist ideas were introduced in Russia by political socialists who were in exile and who made socialists from other countries. Something which we have to note in our mind, the Russian Revolution was led by Social Democratic Labour Party, which some years before revolution had already split into two groups, which are the Bolsheviks and the yes, as we have seen that the Russian Revolution was led by Social Democratic Labour Party, which some years before revolution had already split into two groups, which were the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks. However, both of them agreed that a feudal and capitalist revolution was necessary for establishing socialist society. Thus marked the end of our lesson, so I'd like to give you the exercise which have the two questions. And the first one will explain the ideas of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels in the building a socialist society. And the second one is, what were the features of scientific socialism? So I would like to thank you for being with me from the beginning until the end of our class, and thank you for watching, and I welcome you in the next class or lessons for more learning. Thank you and have a good time, class. Bye bye.